All right, guys. So while I'm driving, I'm going to tell you about the time that I got snaked. Got snaked by a coworker, and I'm sure a lot of you know that that kind of realization, maybe that disappointment. That sometimes maybe it's even an expectation, or it's just like, yeah, I could see them doing that, and it doesn't surprise me that they did it. So I was fairly new at a job, about 6 months in, but it had a lot to it. So you had to be able to show competency and skills and stuff like that, which I had satisfied. But if you just like with a lot of things, if you don't utilize those skills, sometimes they'll tend to just erode. I mean, it's not like you become completely derelict in your ability to do them, but it happens. Which is why a lot of jobs have refresher training courses for this very reason. So I was working with somebody I had never really worked with in close quarters before. She had been on the job for a good amount of time before me, and her normal working partner is very good at what she does. They've been working together, so they have a working rhythm. And so I get it. I get it. And as we were going through some of our duties, I had made like a small error. Imagine that you are supposed to put, I don't know, maybe like a cap on something, and you put the cap on the reverse way or something, something very simple, something very minute like that. And later she pointed it out and said that it was highly inappropriate and that you're supposed to know blah blah blah, you're supposed to know XYZ, which to that point, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. We should all know our job inside and out, but I think we can all understand and agree that it doesn't always go that way. And the one thing that you would like to have in somebody you're working with is a little bit of grace. But that's okay. So I'm kind of getting a pseudo lecture. Well, do you understand what I was saying? Do you get what I'm talking about? I said, you know what? I'm here to learn, so I appreciate it. And as the day progressed, she started to unearth and expose herself by making some really heavy errors that were much more detrimental than the errors that I had made. Now, I'm not trying to keep track or have an Olympics about who made the greater mistakes, but it just goes to show everybody's human. And I did talk about this on another video. I think I might be able to put it here or here. It's called "They're Human Too" or something to that effect. Because a lot of times people we work with or are managed by get very overbearing, and they forget that at one point they were in the position to be trained. But we moved on. But later that day, let me move my phone a little bit. I get a text message. I get a text message from this person saying that she had reached out to the educational coordinator saying that I needed help. Now, a lot of you might not think that that's a big deal. I think it's getting snaked, especially because my oversight in performing something was not to the detriment of others. It was fixed that quick, and it was just, oh, okay. But nevertheless, so she sends me a text message saying that this is what she did on my behalf, and to trust the educator who I know, and I really like this guy, and I would have had no problem reaching out, which is what I said in my response. I said, that's great, but I said, I think what you owe people is the ability to maybe speak to them and allow them to seek out that help first rather than go speak on their behalf, because what you do is you take away my ability to look like I'm owning my own need for further training if that's what's going on. So she responded and said, "Yeah, I understand. That's fair, sort of thing. That's all good, but the problem is you already snaked me." Now, what I'm looking at is I have two choices. I mean, you can't change the bite, but don't let the venom get you. Don't let the venom. Don't let it get to the point where you're angry or mad. Like, yeah, it was kind of like perplexing. Like, you did what? Like, okay, like, couldn't we have talked about this? But I had to think in my own mind. And this is just another way of repackaging of think with logic, not emotion. This is all that I'm saying, guys. Think with logic, not emotion. My responses were very responsive. They weren't reactionary. And I took my time, read it. Okay, what do I want to think of this? What do I want to make of this? How do I want to respond? Don't let the venom get to you, whether they meant to or not. And she kept saying, I'm not doing this as, as a way to hurt you, or I'm not trying to set you up. But nevertheless, when you put somebody's name out in the workplace, to superiors, things like that, where a working reputation matters, it is in its own right a bit of a setup. If you really wanted to help somebody in this capacity, I'm thinking in regards to her, if you knew how to do it, then you could have just pulled me off to the side, because we had plenty of time in which to go over any material that she would have had a concern about. So I called the education director. Like I said, I know the man, and he and I had some other things to ask him about. Anyways, I had finished a course study for certification, and I wanted to find out, what I needed to do since I'd finished it. So I was already ahead of it with things that I needed to talk about. I didn't want to just call and, hey, what happened? But I asked him, I said, well, I had got a text message also that somebody had contacted you based off of my performance. He said, yeah, I saw that. And I just said, well, I wasn't told specifically what it was. And so I was just curious if we might be able to go over that. And he said, yeah. So he pulled up the email, and he said it was, what she had said, and threw and sprinkled in a couple other things again that were non-issues, which non-issue was his words. Non-issue. He said, look, she's reached out to me before, and just his tone and his demeanor let me know that this possibly wasn't her first email. This wasn't her first time, and she's well within her right to do it. Use your resources. I'm all in favor of that. But you can also be the first resource that says something to somebody like, hey, you might, do you need help with that? Or maybe I can help, or here's my number. We have each other's numbers. So he said it's not an issue, and I said, okay, good. I said, look, I'm fairly new. I'm still working on my reputation as an employee, and the last thing you want to do is have something like this precede you. He said, well, I'm not worried about it, because I've heard what other people say about you and your work. I've heard what other people say. He's like, I see your work, and he's like, it passes the sniff test, all those things. He's like, I'm not worried about it. He's like, and honestly, you shouldn't be either. He's like, and we're already doing training across the company anyways for a lot of these things. So it just is what it is. That felt good to hear. It felt good to hear by people who matter. But when you still have to be at ground level with people, guys, be careful. Be careful. There's snakes everywhere. And snake might sound harsh, but we recognize the symbol of the snake sometimes to not be a very trustworthy sort of agent. It's in our stories of lore. It's in, it's biblical in a lot of ways. So I use that, and we could use anything that had venom, because the point is you can't do anything about the bite. That's what they do. Sometimes that's just what it is. But in the aftermath, don't let that venom get into your system to where it paralyzes you from moving forward or speaking up for yourself. Get that venom out of you. Let your anti-venom be that you're still worthy, know that you are still capable, know that you still have the ability to do these things, and that if there's truth to it, that you can seek out the resources yourself. But don't give them a reaction. Give them a response. Don't let it get to a point where you're angry about it. Don't give away that sort of self-control, because letting that get out into the atmosphere on top of somebody already saying something that isn't necessarily true, those are things that can really start to shape you. So you just want to be careful with what it is we're talking about, which is not letting people get to you. Don't let it get to you when it comes to that. So that's a story. That's what I got going on. And if you can see, I'm between a truck and another truck. So I'm going to get off. This rush hour is beautiful because we're out in it and we're here, and that's a wonderful thing to have. Not to necessarily be in the rush hour, but to be here. So, guys, I hope this finds everybody. Woo! First of all, let me say, leave your thoughts in the comments, your ace up the sleeve, your advice, comment, experience, and let me know anything else that you have to impart. Maybe I'm completely wrong on this. Maybe she was absolutely right, and I just took a different approach of how it was brought to me. But I did tell her I'm not mad. You know, this isn't what I'm not mad about that, but I felt like if that was something you were that concerned about, especially since we had so much time to work around each other, you could have just, taken the time to say something to me. She was already halfway there. She was already halfway there, but it was more like it was enough to be picky and more of a critique or a critic rather than be constructive with a little bit of support. So I find that to be important. So, guys, I'm going to leave it at that, but hopefully this finds everybody in your place, pursuit, or beginnings of total health, mind, body, and soul. Peace, love, unity, solidarity, and as always, subscriptions of videos. So stick around.